Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wolfpacker Show. My name's Ethan McDowell. I am here with Noah Fleischman. We are back for another preview podcast. Today, we are previewing NC State's second home game in a three-game homestand against Wake Forest. Demon Deacons are 1-3 so far this year, coming off a Group of 5 loss to Louisiana. And the Wolfpack, of course, defeated Northern Illinois in a game we covered on last week's recap show. Go check that out if you haven't already. We're going to talk all about the Demon Deacons and the Wolfpack and how they match up. Last year, it was a dominant win for the Wolfpack in this rivalry, the second longest continuous rivalry in FBS football. But usually when these two teams play, man, it's close, it's exciting, and usually it's pretty high scoring as well. So we're going to talk about how we see this year's edition of the rivalry unfolding. But before we do that, just want to mention super quickly, Noah, that we're both writers for the Wolfpacker.com. That is NC State's site on the On3 network, the fastest growing college sports website out there, whether you're looking for football coverage, basketball coverage, recruiting news, it's all on there. You can join right now and get access to our premium recruiting scoops, team analysis. We have both spoken with the NC State men's and women's basketball coaching staffs and players, and we have a lot of preview content going up over the next few weeks. So go check that out. And it's all on the wolfpacker.com. All right, Noah, we're going to talk about this matchup between NC State and Wake Forest and how we see it unfolding. We get into, we're going to share our predictions on this show. We're going to talk about give a scouting report for the Demon Deacons, but we get way more in depth on it on the wolfpacker.com. So go check out our website. But until then, let's talk about this Saturday's football game, Noah. I'm going to, get straight to it at the top. Let's talk about NC State's offense. I don't think we sugarcoated it at all in the recap show. It was bad on Saturday. It was bad by design almost. They were happy to turtle up, rely on a rushing offense that showed no indication that it was ready to be relied on, right? They were averaging under 3 yards per carry. In the second half, they threw the ball 5 times and there was no offense going on. This week is a perfect opportunity to take a step forward. If they don't take a step forward this week, I'm not sure when we will see a step forward. Please lay it out for the listeners and the viewers why this is such a perfect opportunity for NC State to show some offensive improvement.
It's a perfect opportunity for one reason, and Wake Forest defense is being retooled, and that's just a fact. They lost a lot from last year's team.
Yeah.
They've returned most of D-line, but their linebackers are mostly new. Their secondary is being retooled too. And when you look at their numbers, they're not entirely great. They're last in the ACC in run defense, giving up 184 yards on the ground. NC State is 13th, just to put it out there, at 160 on the ground, so that just shows that. And then the pass defense isn't that much better. They're second to the bottom, is 16th overall, just in front of Stanford at 285 yards given up through the air. So if NC State can finally establish a run game, this game can be opened up pretty quick by the offense. It sets up perfectly. It just is a matter of execution, Ethan. That's all it is. At this point, they obviously are going to scheme it up. It's a rivalry game, so stats kind of go out the window a little bit, but it's already who they are for the first 4 games, for these first 5 weeks. And we're going into week 6 with NC State having an opportunity to win back-to-back games the first time this year. They haven't done that. Every time they win a game, they lose one. But as we've said, this is probably their best opportunity to do it, not only because of who's on the other side, but it's who's on the other side. They don't have a Clemson or a Tennessee in front of them. So this is an opportunity to do that. But it comes down to running the ball, Ethan. They have struggled to do it all year, and now is an opportunity to right the ship and feel good about themselves before they play a good Syracuse team next week.
Yeah, and this Wake Forest defense, it's not forcing a lot of turnovers so far this season, and they are dead last, I believe, in the conference in sacks. So they're not really getting to the quarterback either. If NC State can put together some semblance of a ground attack, this could be a blowout for the Pack, or at least they could put up a lot of points. This Wake Forest defense is not built to stop really anyone. Louisiana put 41 points on them last week and really was getting whatever they wanted. And Louisiana did that through establishing the run. They ran for just over 200 yards and then set up an efficient passing game where they threw for around 250. but and was 20 for 29 passing. So they were able to create matchups, get receivers open, and keep things efficient through the air. And I think NC State should just try to follow the exact same game plan, because the rushing game has showed flashes. I know that sounds silly to say based on the numbers that they've put up, but there have been games where the running backs are making plays, or there have been games where the offensive line has been blocking well and the running backs, haven't made the plays. They need to put it all together against Wake Forest. This is just, if they can't put it together against Wake Forest, I don't know when they will put it together, because you can say it plainly, Wake Forest defense is not good. A good hallmark for when you're evaluating a defense sometimes is if they have a defensive back leading the team in tackles, that's probably not a good thing, right? And that's the case for Wake Forest. Nick Anderson, a really solid safety, has 49 tackles already this season through 4 games, man. Like, he's on pace for well over 100 as their free safety. And he's been really, really solid, and has been a long-time contributor for them. But he also leads the team in missed tackles with 7 too, and has given up 7 completions on 11 targets this season. The one guy on their defense, they do have a solid defensive front, like you mentioned. It hasn't really translated yet, and I think that's partially because their star, Jasheen Davis, missed part of the season due to injury. He missed 2 of the program's 4 games so far this year, and he's really good. He led the team with 7.5 sacks last year, and he's at 6'3", 270 pounds. He plays as an edge rusher for them, so he's going to come off the edge and try to get to the quarterback. And he's the highest graded pass rusher on the team so far, and has 7 quarterback pressures over just his 2 games, and he's winning 15.4% of his pass rushing reps. So he's really good. And the Pack will have to find a way to contain him. But as long as they can contain him, I think they'll be able to keep CJ Bailey clean. If they're able to keep the ball ahead of the sticks, Noah, they have to establish that running game, like we've said over and over again this season.
Yeah, running game establishing helps. But you know what else helps, Ethan? Avoiding penalties. That is what killed their drives against Northern Illinois. They had 3 holding penalties that all came at really bad times for NC State. CJ Bailey had an 11-yard run on 2nd down that was wiped away by a holding penalty that they then had to go 3-and-out punt. Then there was another drive. The next drive, they had 2 holding penalties, which resulted in a 4-play drive and a punt. So NC State needs to avoid hurting itself. Yes, Dave Thorne's talked about the referees might be calling holding different than they have in the past, but he did admit they got to play within what they're given, and he wasn't happy with that. They did clean it up later in the game and played pretty well. So we'll see what they can do overall. But penalties, avoiding those, and running the ball straight, getting past the line of scrimmage, both of those will help NC State against Wake Forest.
And the listeners and viewers are probably sitting at their computer screens or their TV screens and yelling, "No, Ethan and Noah, we want to see more downfield passing." But it's a team where you're going to have to run the setup, the pass. You have a freshman quarterback. You can't ask him to just be taking these deep shots on unfavorable down and distances, right? So you have to expect that they're going to have to run the ball to set up the deep passes and set up these one-on-one matchups. And again, Louisiana had a ton of success. And I'll admit, I don't know a ton about Louisiana's wide receiver and tight ends room. I bet NC State's is better. I bet they have more talent. I bet they will also be able to win these one-on-one battles. And maybe we'll see some more shots downfield as a result. Again, only if they can run the ball. If they're still getting stuffed at the line and CJ is having to throw the ball on 2nd and 11 or 3rd and 8 all game, then it's going to be a challenge still. And I don't think you can expect that much improvement even against a pretty anemic Wake Forest defense. I think if they can run the ball, again, this will be a high-scoring game for NC State. I think you could see them putting up 30-plus easily, but got to run the ball, man. We've been saying it all year, and this year is the first time I felt fairly confident that they will be able to. Let's talk about the offense, or Wake Forest offense, that is. It's the slow mesh, the least favorite words of most ACC defensive coordinators over the past 5 or so years. Wake Forest, RPO game, the slow mesh offense, it puts defenses in fits. The way that it just makes everyone pause for an extra half second as they decide to hand the ball off or throw it. And last year, they really struggled because their quarterback situation was pretty rough. They couldn't get anything going offensively. This year, they have taken a step forward in that area, in large part thanks to their quarterback, Hank Bachmeier, a Louisiana Tech and Boise State transfer, spent last year with the Bulldogs, and he's having a really, really solid season, Noah. He is PFF's fifth highest graded passer in the country amongst quarterbacks who have played at least 50 snaps this year. And he's completed 66.7% of his passes. Again, that slow mesh offense kind of lends itself to efficient passing, and he's making the most of it right now, and has thrown for 1,159 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception over his first 4 games, averaging a little over 8 yards attempt. So he's been really, really solid so far this year. When you look at the Wake Forest offense, when you look at Hank Bachmeier, what stands out about the quarterback that NC State's going to have to stop this year?
Yeah, he's a guy who's been sacked 10 times, and that says a lot through their first 5 games. That hurts, but he's a guy that takes care of the football. 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. It's a good ratio to have. Obviously, they probably like a few more scores through the air, but he's throwing for 1,100 yards, which means he's throwing the ball pretty well downfield. 66% completion percentage, which is it's pretty good, pretty what they were getting out of Grace McCall and TJ Bailey this year if you're looking at NC State. But their rushing attack, led by Desmond Claiborne, they're really good. He's a guy that's a really, really good running back. He's ran for 335 yards, averaging 5.5 yards a carry this year with 4 touchdowns. He dislocated his kneecap last week. They thought he was out for the game. He came back like literally 45 minutes later and ripped off a big rushing touchdown.
Whew.
The kid is built different. I mean, you look up what a recovery time for a dislocated kneecap is. It's literally like 4 to 6 weeks on like WebMD.com. And he came back 30 minutes later and ran for a big score. Don't know how that's going to affect his availability for this weekend's game. Wake Forest hasn't said anything about it, but we'll see. They're going to play, gamesmanship, and these two coaches know each other really, really well, going back to the MAC days. But that, and then you look at their wide receiving core, led by Taylor Morin, a slot receiver that's one of the best in the ACC. No touchdowns yet this year, but 24 receptions, 325 yards, averaging 13.5 yards per reception. He's good. He's fast. He's a return man as well for them. So they're going to have to know where he is at most of the time on the field. And then Desmond Green as well, being one of their top outside receivers.
Yeah, Taylor Morin, you mentioned him. If Tamarcus Cooley starts again, it'll be his 3rd start of the season at nickel, that'll be a really good test for the redshirt freshman because he's really solid. Morin is, and he leads the team with 30 targets. So they're going to get him the ball. And they try to do it in a variety of ways. They try to do it in the screen game a little bit. They'll try to just get the ball in his hands and let him make things happen. So far this year, 167 of those yards you talked about have been after the catch, right? And 17 of his 24 catches have led to first downs. He is a reliable target for them, but he also has a couple of fumbles this year and 3 drops. So he is not perfect, but he is their number 1 target so far this year, and I'm someone to watch out for without a doubt. And going back to Bachmeier, they're going to throw the ball. He has attempted at least 35 passes in each of the 3 games. Like, Claiborne's a really good running back, but if he's out, then I think this is going to be a super, super pass-heavy day for Wake Forest. And I think that plays into NC State's strengths. I think that'll allow them to blitz more, send more pressure, and this defense clearly has looked better when they're just able to blitz, let Sean Brown, let Caden Fordham play fast and get after the quarterback. Last game showed, I think, that is the ticket to success for this team. Of course, when you send that extra pressure, you're leaving yourself susceptible to more big plays, more one-on-one coverages. But I think it's also going to be NC State's best way to keep teams behind the sticks. So we'll see what kind of strategy they take. Again, against the slow mesh, it's a little more difficult because the linebackers, that whole offense is predicated on really confusing the linebackers and getting them to hesitate. So we'll see how they kind of handle that. It'll be a good test for Sean Brown, Caden Fordham, and Devon Betty. But I think it'll be very, very interesting to see how they handle Wake Forest's passing attack and see if they can continue to force turnovers, because right now NC State is 2nd in the conference in forced fumbles. They are sixth in the conference with 5 interceptions. And, Bachmeier's only recorded 2 turnover-worthy plays so far this season. So we'll see how that all goes for him. But, yeah, I think we could see Tony Gibson get after Wake Forest a little bit in this game and, try to make them one-dimensional. And usually if NC State can make a team one-dimensional, they have success. One more thing before we move on, Noah, is one of my main keys to the game is they're going to have to keep him contained as well. Bachmeier is a really part of the reason why his PFF grade is so high is because he is a really, really good scrambler. He only has 75 rushing yards this year, but the sacks are a big part of that. You mentioned it. He's taken 10 so far over 4 games, but he's also tied for the team lead with 10 rushes of 10 yards or more. So when he gets out of the pocket, and they'll even have him just keep it every now and then. He's not like a super elusive or super fast quarterback, but he's opportunistic. He takes what he can get on those downs. Instead of forcing the ball downfield, he's more than happy to scramble for it. He can move, and that's kind of the quarterback that's hurt the Wolfpack so far this year. He is kind of similar to Nico's style of scrambling against when they played Tennessee, or the Western Carolina quarterback as well was kind of the same way. NC State can't just leave the field open for him. They are going to have to contain Hank Bachmeier, or they could give up some sneaky yards on the ground there, I think. But yeah, man, when you look at Wake Forest, does anything else stand out about this team? What's going to be a key to a potential victory for the Wolfpack? What's kind of standing out?
Yeah, I really think it comes down to executing on offense and taking advantage of their defense. That's their weakness, and that's what NC State's going to have to find a way to exploit. And I think NC State, if they can do that and get rolling, then its defense, which played extremely well last week, if they can carry that same play into this week, then NC State should be able to play from ahead, which it did the entire game a week ago against Northern Illinois, and play well because they hadn't really played with a lead for an entire game till last weekend, and they played well with it. Now let's see if they can do that again. I think that's the biggest growing point I want to see from NC State in this game is how can its defense play well one week, translate that to another week, and continue playing well. Because it's all you can play well in one game. It doesn't matter. You need to do it over time and show a trend that it's improving. So we'll see what happens. But I think that is it. And little off topic, but last year we talked about Wake Forest being a house of horrors for NC State. NC State was 2-9 going into that game. Before they won, they're 3-9 in their last 12 meetings there. At home, NC State is 9-2 since 2001 against Wake Forest. So, little flip.
There you go. And, NC State just tends to win a lot more games at home than they lose. So that should help that Carter Finley Stadium home field advantage. We should shout out, hey, the fans, they sold out all the tickets again, complete sellout for the pack. Another good, showing by Wolfpack Nation to pack Carter Finley Stadium and make that environment fun to cover without a doubt. All right. Well, should we get into some predictions? No? Do we want to dive into what we think is actually going to happen in this game? Each week, we like to predict who's going to lead the team in rushing, receiving, tackling, and then we'll share our final score predictions. This week, or I should say last week, the rushing attack didn't show much. No one finished, I think, with more than 25, 26 yards on the ground. It was a really, really slow day. We talked about it in the recap. After the first drive, they didn't have a drive that went past 5 plays. So it was a very slow offensive day for the Wolfpack. I'm not expecting that to be the case on Saturday. I think we will see improvement. But Noah, who do you think is going to lead the team in rushing? And let me follow that up with, do you think it'll be over 75 yards by the leading rusher?
Yeah, I answered the first part. I think yes. Or the second part first. I think yes, it will be over 75 yards for whoever the leading rusher is. But I'm going to go with the sophomore, Kendrick Raphael. He's second on the team in rushing with 203 yards this year. But his last, 2 of his last 3 games have been really, really impressive. At Clemson, he ran for 90 yards on 10 carries. Yes, a lot of that was in the fourth quarter when Clemson had playing their second and third strings, but they still got to execute. They still have to do it against scholarship players, which was good. And He also ran for 63 yards and a touchdown against Louisiana Tech. I think Kendrick gets rolling against a pretty weak rush defense and leads them. I think he breaks off a big run. He's capable of doing that. He had a 40-yard run at Clemson. Do we see another one? I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. Right now, Kendrick is averaging 3.91 yards after contact, and he's also leading the Wolfpack running backs with 10 missed tackles forced so far this year. He has been arguably the most consistent and elusive running back in the Wolfpack backfield. So I think that is a really good pick. And just like we saw his freshman year, it seems like he's getting better by the game. So, of course, last week was an exception, but no one looked good in that game. So he's taking steps forward, and I think he could be a really, really, really good running back. And we'll just have to see how he just continues to progress. But I think that's a good pick. I'm sticking with my weekly Jordan Waters pick. I think that Wake Forest doesn't have the biggest defense. Jordan Waters is a big running back who should be able to, I think, if nothing else, just have 4 yards in a cloud of dust in this game. I think NC State's offensive line will be able to get enough of a push that he won't have to do too much, but I think he'll be able to run through some tackles. And he's had some sneaky good runs over the past couple weeks. I know it's been a slow start for the Duke transfer, but he's had some good runs. A couple of them have been wiped out by holding penalties, but he's had some nice flashes so far in the past couple games. And I know that, like we said, Kendrick's been more consistent, but I'm still holding out hope that we will see a Jordan Waters breakout at some point, because I do think he is a good running back. I think there's still no doubt about that. He showed that for the past 5 years, and now maybe we could see him break out this weekend against Wake Forest. So I'll go with Jordan Waters here. It could be either of them. Maybe we see a split. Like Louisiana last week had 2 rushers over 75 yards, I believe. So it could be, a more even balanced, rotation in the backfield. We don't know if we're going to see Hollywood Smothers back this week. He missed the last game. But if he is back, then he'll probably factor in too. And, his home run hitting ability will certainly help. But I think it'll be a committee day in the backfield, at least between Waters and Raphael. And, like we said, one of them needs to have success. So we need to see if we want to see NC State's offense take a step forward, we need to see one of them have a big game. Essentially, is what I'm saying. What about receiving wise? Last week, again, Noah Rogers led the team in receiving. He had 2 catches for 48 yards. Noah, both of those catches were on the first drive of the game. We've talked about the passing offense. We don't need to get too far into its struggles recently because we've talked at length about it on our Northern Illinois recap show. But who's going to be the receiver to break out and lead the pack against Wake Forest? Last year, they didn't really take advantage of Wake Forest's passing defense so much because they kept it all on the ground. Who do you see having a big day against the Demon Deacons this weekend?
I'm going to go with the not obvious choice here. I'm going to go with the fun choice. Wesley Grimes is going to play against his old team for the first time. I think Robert and I is going to draw something up for Wesley, get a big play. Give me Wesley Grimes, lead the team in receiving. He only has 8 catches for 95 yards this year. But this might be the opportunity. They feature him more. They let him get revenge on his school that he left after playing there for 2 years and play well against the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, well, I'll take the easy option, and then I'll go with KC. I mean, we're due for a KC explosive game, right? They've struggled to get they've tried everything really, getting him the ball in the short to intermediate areas. And sometimes it's, Bailey missed him on a throw against Northern Illinois. They had him open for a deep shot against Clemson, but couldn't find him. But the screen passes, the jet sweeps and everything, the pop passes, they're not working right now. They're picking up an average of 3 yards per play right now. So I think we'll see them scheme up something more creative that once the running game gets going, KC will be able to get open a little bit in the middle of the field and maybe pick up some yards after the catch, which is what he is so good at when he gets just a little bit of space. They just need to find a way to get him a little bit of space, and we'll see KC get back to being KC. I very confidently believe. But I think KC might be the biggest benefactor of NC State getting a rushing attack going Saturday because he will just have simply more space to operate. And when they try to stretch the field a little bit more horizontally, there will be room for him to operate. So I'll go with KC there. What about defensively? Last week, man, we saw Caden Fordham make 14 tackles, a career high. Sean Brown, 12 tackles, a career high. Davin Van, 10 tackles, a career high. Three really, really good double-digit tackling performances. And, the defense was on the field for 74 snaps, man, and that unit just stepped up and made plays. I know it was a one-game thing, but I thought that was just clear improvement. That is, I think we could see that translate to the next week. We forgot to mention it earlier in the show, but Noah, you wrote about it this morning about the competition along the defensive line. Before we give out our tackling leaders, can you actually just talk a little bit about that? Because last year they made a change, but it sounds like they might be making another change for this week.
Yeah, last week we saw Isaiah Shirley start at defensive end opposite Davin Van in Charlie Price's spot. And Dave Doran talked about it on his radio show last night, kind of expanded on why. And it comes down to just simple, they want to have competition. And Charlie Wild has come up with an idea of Davin Van is obviously a solidified starter on that D line, Brandon Cleveland as well. That third spot on the other side of defensive end has kind of been up and down. There's three guys, all really similar production. So what is he doing? He's challenging them every single week at practice and in games. And whoever grades out the best in Coach Wiles and Dave Doran's eyes, and Tony Gibson, I'm sure, has a say in it, then they'll start the following week. So Isaiah Shirley played well last week, but Trevally Price played extremely well. He played 41 snaps, led those three guys in snaps. Even though they all play between 35 and 41 snaps, it's really similar. And so Trevally Price earned the opportunity to start against Wake Forest, but that doesn't mean Noah Potter can't start next week or Isaiah Shirley can't start. It's a really good idea to get three guys battling for who's going to be the first one out there, even though they rotate so much that they all end up playing about the same amount of snaps.
Yeah, they're good. They're all three of them are going to be on the field plenty. Noah Potter played a few nose tackle snaps too, which I thought was interesting. When they go a little bit smaller, maybe on some pass rushing downs. I brought that up, and I think maybe the spring or even the summer when we were just talking about how this defensive line rotation could work out because he shows flashes. Like he's been getting into the backfield well, pressuring the quarterback a little bit this year. So I think having him at nose tackle is a fun option on obvious passing downs when maybe Davin Van's not available to slide inside and play a little bit of nose, or if you just want to keep him on the edge because like last week he was wrecking the game so much. I think that could work too. But, obviously with Red Hibbler, Pete Thamel from ESPN reported today he is going to enter the transfer portal. That's not a surprise after we saw him, removed from the roster after 4 games. That seemed like the logical next step. But so they're going to have to play a little bit thinner on the defensive line. They're going to have to rely on folks, especially with DJ Jackson out. We don't know when he's returning, but he's expected to return this year. All that to say, I don't think either of us are going to pick a defensive lineman to lead the team in tackles this week. But who do you have leading NC State in tackles this week?
I'm going with Caden Fordham, the obvious pick, but this slow mesh offense really puts the linebackers in conflict, but it also makes them be really, really important on how you stop it. And he played extreme. He played probably his best game, I think, of his NC State career against Northern Illinois. And I'm expecting a good performance out of him. Leading team in tackle with 41. Yes, Sean Brown has 40. But this guy's just been all over the field. 2 passes defended, a fumble recovery as well. Give me Caden Fordham to lead the team in tackles. Kind of Peyton Wilson-esque. I don't know, but so far so good for him, at least on his effort.
Last year was kind of interesting because the tackle numbers were very, very even. Wake Forest didn't play a lot of offensive snaps. I should preface that by saying it was a pretty cut and dry day for NC State's defense. They nearly had to shut out for 3/4 of that game. But Jalen Scott led the team in tackles against the Demon Deacons. Peyton Wilson had 7. And then the next 2 players were Savion Jackson and Caden Fordham with 4 each. So I think it's going to be an even tackling day. I think you're going to see it spread out because Wake Forest does spread the ball around all parts of the field in that slow mesh offense. But I think I'm going to go with Sean Brown. I have been a fan of his play since last year. The first few games of the season were not too encouraging. I thought he had a really, really good bounce back game when he was able to just play fast and get after the quarterback against Northern Illinois. And I'm wondering if we could see him continue to improve, especially against a team that is probably going to throw the ball a lot this weekend. I think it could be another big game for him, and I'm going to pick him to lead the team in tackling. Yeah, it's going to be fun to follow the tackling race between him and Fordham, see who ends up leading the team in tackles, because they've almost alternated or had these big tackling days in subsequent weeks. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Sean Brown can do, maybe string together a second really impressive day after really standing out in the previous matchup. All right, well, to wrap up, though, let's hear it. Who's going to win the game?
Yeah, I'll go NC State. Finally finds a way to win back-to-back games this year. Gets themselves on a good note in game 2 of a 3-game homestand. 27-17 Wolfpack over the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, I have a nearly identical score. I'm going with 30-20 Wolfpack win. And that's predicated on them running the ball. I think they will be able to run for, let's say, over 175, maybe reach that 200 mark. It's not like they have to turn into, the best rushing offense in the country. They just have to be able to at least keep the offense ahead of the chains. We saw it all last year once they were able to figure out, an offense where they were able to figure out efficient plays on first and second downs. That offense looked so much better. Like any offense, but especially I feel like Robert and I's offense just really prides itself on being it can convert 2nd and 4, it can convert 3rd and 5. It just can't be in those 3rd and 10 situations. It's tough for any offense, but NC State's offense has really struggled in those 3rd and longs. So I'm saying rushing offense will keep them ahead of the sticks, and the passing offense will look a lot better as a result because CJ Bailey will be throwing to receivers that are a lot more open. And that'll be success for the Wolfpack. They'll improve to 4-2 on the season, and they'll have a chance to sweep this 3-game homestand next week against Syracuse. But hey, those are our predictions, and that's our show for today. We'll be back Sunday morning to recap everything that happened in Saturday's game and see what we got right and what we got wrong in the second half of today's show. And we appreciate you all for watching today and tuning in, and we will talk to you all very soon. See you in a couple of days, folks.